Hi, welcome to the recap of my 5th round league game of this season. Before I jump into the game, I want to give you again a bit of the background before the match. So if you've seen the first 4 games, you should know that our team is currently in the lead of the table. So we won the first 4 games pretty decisively. And now we are playing our 5th round game. The opponent of this match, they had a bit of trouble to field the best players in this season. So also this time they did not field their best team. And on average, our team had around 300 points higher rating. On my board, I got an opponent who had even 500 points lower rating than me. So we were pretty big favorites in that game. We will see how the game ended. But of course, when we are so big favorites, you can expect that it went very positive for us. But nevertheless, every game has to be played and has to be won. So I was playing on board 7, so we were playing at home, so I had the black pieces like you see on the board. And so I just want to jump into the recap of the game quickly. So the game started with my opponent playing d4. Sorry, now it works. And so I just planned to play my standard King's Indian setup, so playing the knight to f6, and then he played the bishop to f4. So this was a bit surprising for me. I did not really know what to do with it, so probably okay, that will end up as a London system for the white pieces, but I was not really aware of what he's doing, what he's planning at that position. So I'm not really used that much to playing against it, but I just also played my standard King's Indian setup. So I played d6, he moved the knight to c3, I played g6 to make the fianchetto and the castle, so he played the knight to f3, played the bishop out, then he played h3, so to block my my bishop from coming to the g4 square. I did just the castle, he played the e3 move, and here at this point I already realized, that is the London system, I get it. And here I still played a relatively standard move that I play in these positions, c6, so a bit as a preparation, either for pawn to b5, but you can also play things like the knight to a6 and a6 and c7, or the queen to c7, things like that. So just did that relatively normal move. He played also a normal development move, bishop to d3, and here I was thinking, how to proceed. So one thing that I wanted to do is, of course, play the pawn to e5 and get control of the center. So 2 typical moves to prepare that are the knight to d3 or the rook to e8, and also the queen to c7. So I didn't want to play the queen to c7 because the bishop is in the diagonal, so that did not look that did not look right. I also didn't want to play the knight straight away here because I didn't want to trap the bishop. I mean, the bishop cannot really move anywhere meaningfully. Right, this square is protected by the pawn. This square by the bishop does also not really work here. I block my pawn, so there's no good move. Moving the bishop to d7 blocks my knight. So so I thought, maybe I can still make a move to wait a bit and get a bit more space. So I decided to play b5, also to get here a square for the bishop, so the bishop can develop to b7 or maybe a6 at some point. So having some more options before pushing the pawn through. If the white pawn was on e4, maybe I would have been a bit more eager to play for a quick e5 push, but I thought, yeah, okay, gaining a bit more space on the queen's side cannot be that wrong. Okay, my opponent played a3, yeah, it makes sense, so to stop the pawn from advancing to b4 and attacking the knight. So here I also did not play a quick support of the e5 push, but I decided to develop the bishop now to b7. So I thought, like, okay, bishop a6 is probably not the best move, so you have to prepare it with a4, otherwise I block in that a pawn. So okay, probably the only meaningful way to develop the bishop is to b7. Then I also protect a bit the d5 square already, so because that is a bit of a threat to play d5, because okay, I can win it, but then this pawn drops, so maybe getting a bit more protection of the d5 square is also not that wrong. But okay, my opponent played a normal development move, castles, and then I tried to support the e5 push. So first with a knight here to get control of the square. My opponent had a similar idea, so just make normal development moves, develop the rook here to also support the e-pawn push. Then I played here the rook to a8, and now there's already some kind of threat. So if you play e5 now, the bishop is attacked, and then there's a threat of playing e4. Yeah, so you cannot win that pawn here. He has to move away with the bishop, and then e4 is already a fork on knight and bishop. There is one way to counteract that. You will see it quickly, because I could play basically my plan. He did not really stop it. He played here a move that I did not understand at that point. So he played the rook to b1. So the idea is to get the rook out of the diagonal, because he wanted to play b3, and cannot really. I mean, in this position you can play b3 because there are so many pieces in a diagonal that the bishop does not really hit the rook down here. But yeah, he played rook to b1 to support the b3. That's what he told me after the match when we analyzed it. Okay, so that was a move, and now I can play my plan. So play e5. Okay, so instead of just moving away, he decides to trade once, and now he has a problem. I threaten the bishop here, and I threaten to move the pawn and fork those two pieces. So I threaten to win a piece, and there's just one way to stop that. Bishop to g5. Yeah, so with the idea, okay, pinning the knight. So now when I move forward, he can just take the piece, because the knight cannot take back. Yeah, and I'm just supporting it with the rooks, and he's here protecting it with protecting the e4 square with two pieces. So it's just winning the pawn. Okay, but this only works as long as this knight is pinned. So one way to stop that is I can just attack the bishop. So I play h6 to kick the bishop away and to enable again e4. In that position, he is pretty much forced to trade the bishop. So I take back, now threatening again e4. And now I have a bit of an advantage because I have the bishop pair. I mean, it's not that big of an advantage because he has to stop the e4 push, and he does it with a logical move, playing e4 himself. And now this bishop is kind of trapped behind my own pawn, and also cannot really move out there without preparing it with h5. And so the bishop pair is not really that powerful in that concrete situation right now. But in general, bishop pair is a good thing. Okay, so he played e4 now to stop my pawn advance. So now the question is, how can I make any progress? Yeah, and my idea was, okay, I attack this e4 pawn already with a knight. The bishop is kind of seeing it, not yet, but it's in the diagonal, so I use that position of the bishop. But I have to play c5, that this diagonal opens. And with c5 I have here 2 pawns, so I can threaten c4 or b4, so c4 is threatening to kick the bishop away, so then 1 defender less for that pawn. Maybe it's falling. I mean, you have to trick the opponent a bit at some point, but yeah, creating some threats, it cannot be wrong. So the only problem with this plan is that I cannot really push the c pawn already, because the b pawn is unprotected if I play c5. So my idea is to protect the b pawn with a6. Okay. So now my opponent again played a move that I did not really understand that well. So he played the bishop back to f1. So it makes a bit of sense, so to protect here the king's position, but currently I have not really big threats. So the bishop, yeah, in some positions the bishop is placed on that square after castling and moving the king, moving the rook to e1, but probably not the best idea in this position. It's also opening up the d file, but there is no need to trade the queens. So if I trade the queens, probably a lot of my advantage is gone. So the more I'm going to an endgame, yeah, the less advantage I will have probably. So currently I have a bit of a space advantage here on the queen side and the bishop pair, but this is far away from 1, so it's I have to do something. Okay, so I want to keep the queens on the board, and the idea is to move the queen to c7. So I'll just show it to you because I played it, to push the c pawn forward and also have the queen protect the e5 pawn. I mean, the e5 pawn cannot really be attacked, and only the knight here attacks it. But yeah, just having that rook protecting that pawn, it binds the rook to that pawn, and probably I need to push the rooks into the open file, and when they are traded, I need a defender for that pawn. So I decided to go here to c7, and yeah, here my opponent tried to get the rooks into the d file, so he moved the queen to c1. I thought more that he probably plays queen to e2. I mean, it blocks in the bishop, but it looks more natural. But okay, so that was the move that he made, and now I just continue with my plan, playing c5. Yeah, right. So c5. So the bishop is on the diagonal, attacking now the pawn. So I have 2 attackers, just 2 defenders, and I already threaten b4 and kick the knight away, so that I win that pawn. I do not completely win the pawn, because the knight can go somewhere like, yeah, a2, and then again attack the pawn on b4 when I play b4. So it's not completely winning a pawn, but it wins a critical pawn in the center. So I can open up the second diagonal by being able to push e4, e3 with the pawn. So it gives some advantage. Okay, now my opponent plays the move that kind of explains the rook b1 move. He plays b3. Not the best move, but it's, yeah, there is some idea behind the rook move to b1. So probably b4. No, b4 does not work. It would not have worked, because when the pawn takes b4, then the queen attacks that unprotected knight. So that would not have worked even in this situation. But okay, he played b3, and now I can play the move that I planned to play already before. I play b4, attacking the knight, removing the defender of the e4 pawn. So now I have now I have an attack that really threatens this pawn. Okay, my opponent could trade here first, but he decides to go away with the knight to a2, and the good thing for my opponent is that the knight attacks this pawn a second time. So in the end, he's not really losing a pawn, but it's just I win this pawn, but he will win that pawn. So yeah. So this is basically the material trade, but in the end, me winning this pawn is more advantageous than him winning some pawns on the edge of the board, because then when this pawn falls, this pawn can move, and then my bishop pair with all the diagonals gets more powerful. Yeah, so this is a positional advantage then, let's say. Okay, so I take this pawn that is undefended, he takes the pawn, I take the pawn back, and he is taking this pawn. Okay, so we have same material, but I have the bishop pair, the knight in the center of the board, and his pieces are all a bit, this rook is not really supporting this pawn very well. The queen is a bit blocked by their own pieces. The bishop is on the initial square. The knight is a bit advanced, but also it cannot really move anywhere. It's restricted by my bishop here. So I have some positional advantage. And here the computer is already giving me minus 4.5 advantage. So a huge advantage. I did not play the best move, because the best move, that is a pretty tricky combination that you have to see. So the thing is, the knight is attacking now the f2 pawn, and the queen can fork here this knight and the f2 pawn. So there's a threat on a piece and a threat on the king's position, let's say. Okay, and what I played, I just tell it to you before I analyze the other position, is queen b6 to just attack the knight and attack here. Yeah, so a pawn with check and a piece. I also analyzed knight takes f2, because I thought, okay, when the king takes, I can still play the move. It's check and attacking the piece, and I win the piece. And then I'm up a pawn, and the king is kind of in the open. Right? So that is even better. But then I thought, okay, playing knight f2, but he can play queen f3, and then this diagonal is blocked, and the knight is trapped, so that the knight cannot really go anywhere. I mean, okay, if I see it now, the knight can go just back to e4. So I did not see that any. Okay, so I just play this variation for now. So I analyzed this move and thought, okay, queen here is stopping this double attack via the diagonal and trapping the knight. I'm just seeing you can play the knight back to e4, and then you just have the pawn advantage. Yeah, I thought this square is protected in my analysis in the game. So, okay, I made here a miscalculation, but what I also calculated here was the best move and the best variation to sacrifice the knight again here. Now he's taking back, and now the move that wins is putting the bishop here, because the bishop can attack the piece and threatens to go to c5 and attack the queen, and the queen cannot go away because it's pinned to the king. So this is the way how to win in this situation. I mean, apparently the best move is to sacrifice the knight here again, because the knight is protecting the c5 square. Now you can take here, and then you just go somehow out of that threat. Okay, and now if you calculate the number of pieces, then black is up one pawn, but white's king's position is completely destroyed. Okay, you can maybe win here another pawn, then black is up 2 pawns, but okay. But this is a pretty tricky long combination. So I'm going back to this position, and I thought, okay, just play the simple move. I just play queen b6. So this is also attacking this pawn and the knight. And okay, I've seen there is one way to prevent the both threats. That is the knight to d3. So I just move it, but here I already calculated this before. There is a nice threat. Yeah, you can play the knight from here to c3, threaten here the winning an exchange, and additionally this square is evacuated, so you can play e4 and fork again the two knights. So there are two threats, right? And this is exactly what I do. Now I play the knight to c3. Yeah, now the question is a bit how to defend. What is a better defense? Yeah, the exchange is not worth that much compared to a full piece. So he takes the pawn and I take the exchange. But in this position, again, there is a way to defend against knight takes b1, or at least to create some counter threats, and that is also what my opponent told me after the game, that he considered it. The way how to create some counter attacks is playing the bishop to c4. So I did not see that, I did not consider that. I just thought, okay, I just win the exchange now and everything is fine. But when you take the exchange, apparently playing the bishop out here with the threat of winning that pawn and the exchange back is the most promising counterattack. You still have invested a lot of material, so it's I should be still winning pretty clearly, but okay, so this is a relatively annoying way to create some chances. Yeah, I just show you the line that the computer suggests. So taking here, and then the bishop goes here, and okay, so you can either trade here one time, or I thought I maybe protect this pawn with rook e7. Rook f8 is a bit, yeah, very passive. Oh no, rook f8 doesn't work because the knight can fork here. Yeah, but maybe going here, okay, and then you can then he can take the piece. Yeah, but looking at that, okay, it's one exchange for one pawn, and his pieces are all pretty active. So yeah, that is the situation. But okay, maybe just doubling up the rooks to create a threat here. So okay, I'm not 100% convinced that this is so great. I mean, okay, he can take here. This is a bit annoying. Yeah, and then trading once. Okay, he has to trade back with a knight. Okay, and then I have to retreat somehow with the king. So then I'm up one exchange for 2 pawns. So yeah, it does not look that ideal, but okay, this knight is also a bit hard to get out here, out of that position, because all the squares are pretty well protected. So I'm not convinced that he will get out the knight without trading it down for, I mean, maybe I get the knight and the bishop for the rook or something like that. I'm not 100% convinced of the position either, and the computer says this is still minus 3.5, so I don't know. So in the end, it did not matter. I'm going back to this position, so I just played the, for me, normal move, just winning the exchange, and my opponent also just did the normal thing and just take it back, right? And now I was thinking a bit, okay, how can I create new threats? So the first thing and first idea was, okay, I can attack this knight. This knight is too active for me, so I just attack it with the queen. Okay, a bit the idea or the question, okay, where to go? but I decided then to go with the queen to c7, because I mean, okay, queen to c5 or d6, then the knight could directly attack the queen back. So here the queen is safe, and the knight has to leave. So I thought, okay, he might go back to d3, but he decided to go to c4, also fine. And now this is again a critical position, or a critical point where I thought, okay, how to continue with the game, because there is one move that looks very logical, using that bishop and trade here knight, so to ruin the king's position, the pawn structure before the king. But the problem with this is a bit, then I give away the bishop pair, the strong bishop, then I create opposite colored bishops, and there I was not really sure, okay, is it good for me or is it not good for me? Because opposite colored bishops in an endgame typically mean this is a problem to win, because he controls then the white squares with one piece and I control the black squares with one piece. So in an endgame I would need to push my pawn through a white square that I cannot protect with my own bishop, and I'm up in exchange but down a pawn. So I need to conserve my pawns. If he can somehow trade all the pawns and sacrifice a piece in the end on my last pawn, then this might be a draw. I mean, okay, I'm up in exchange, so I have my assets, but yeah, this could be dangerous. But the other thing is, in the middle game, things are a bit different. In the middle game, when you have opposite colored bishops, you can use the other pieces, so especially the queen, to have an advantage on the squares of your bishop. So when I have a bishop on the black squares and a queen on the black squares, it's really hard for him to defend the black squares on the board, because I mean, the knights can reach some black squares, of course, like here e5 is double protected, but other black squares are not protected, and the only piece that he has to protect all the black squares is a queen. So queen is not the ideal defender, because it's a very valuable piece. So yeah, and this was what went through my head. And in the end I thought, okay, me controlling the black squares is better than him controlling the white squares. So my advantage is bigger than his advantage. So I was a bit afraid of this bishop attacking then this pawn and winning it when I track down this bishop, because you can attack that pawn maybe. But okay, I was also thinking I can play a5, so then it's on a black square, then I don't have the problem anymore. Maybe he plays quickly b4 to stop that, but okay, then I can still play a5. If he does not trade, I can also move it through. Then this is a passed pawn. I have this bishop that's protecting the square to make the queen. So yeah, I should have enough advantages that is justified. Okay, so I decided trading down that bishop to ruin the king's position, and then using the black squares, the dark squares should be the advantage for me. Okay, so I trade here, he takes back. Now the question was a bit how to use the dark square advantage. Right, so one idea was moving the queen to, for example, f4 and putting the bishop behind, like on e5, and using here a battery queen in front of the bishop to mate here on h2. The problem with that is I can move the queen here, but moving the bishop here is not really possible because the knight is protecting that square. So I said, okay, this is probably not the ideal plan right now. Then I had an idea, okay, there's not only this diagonal, there's also this diagonal. And I can move the bishop on to the d4 square on that diagonal. And there are two ways how to exploit it, either also moving the queen behind the bishop and create here an attack, or even better, when the bishop is on d4, the pawn is pinned, so the g3 square is not protected and the queen can go there. So this was the decision-making process to play d4 and threaten queen to g3 check. and winning that pawn at least, and yeah, creating more threats, destroying the king's position, the pawn position. So that was the whole idea. Okay, and now he plays knight to e3, blocking the bishop out. So now queen g3 doesn't work anymore because the pawn is not pinned anymore, right? So I was thinking a bit about, okay, what is wrong with taking here? I mean, I could take here, and if the pawn takes, the queen can still infiltrate, but yeah, this is not really creating any advantages anymore. Yeah, and also one option, okay, putting the queen somewhere like c5 to attack here further is working, but then queen c1 is protecting it. It's not really helpful, right? But then I came up with the old idea that I had and thought again about, wait a minute, when I play queen f4, I can now play the bishop to e5 and threaten a mating attack. Yeah, because now the e5 square is not protected by the knight anymore. There are still a few problems with that I've seen, like, okay, the knight can go to g4 because the knight protects then this pawn, and the h2 square, that is basically the mating square, so then it doesn't work. Also from that position, the e5 square is protected, so when queen is here and bishop is here, knight is here, it's attacking here. So yeah, it's not 100% working yet, but you can play something like h5 to protect that g4 square, and then it should work. So that was my plan. Yeah, I can just show you the main line that I calculated. So I thought, okay, going here, and then probably he's playing something like this to protect again the knight. And okay, in this position it's interesting, I cannot really take the f3 pawn because bishop g2, and then queen is attacked and the rook here, so that's not working. But here I can play a preparatory move, h5, so that the knight cannot go here anymore, and now it does not really matter that much what he plays. I mean, there are still moves like moving the bishop here, because then bishop here does not really help anymore, right? So I can infiltrate with the queen, but there's no mating threat. So yeah, this is a variation that is still pretty well working for him. But I mean, there are still ideas like doubling the rooks up, or maybe also putting the rook on the c file to attack here a bit. So it's still pretty advantageous. The computer advises to put the rook on d8, so I don't know why exactly on d8, but I probably would have either doubled up the rook in the e file, to put more pressure here, or in the c file to put the pressure here. But okay, so this was the plan that I had. I'm going back to where was it? This position, right? Yeah, this position where my opponent played the knight to e3, and I played here the queen to d4 as planned. To put the bishop to e5 and create a mating threat and exploit the advantages on the dark squares. So maybe with h5 before to protect the square, but yeah, so this is the idea. And now in this position, my opponent made a mistake. I mean, I'm happy that I've quickly realized it, but my opponent played knight to c4. Yeah, so probably he was afraid that I take the knight. And maybe he also wanted to stop the bishop to going to e5 and winning on the diagonal. I don't know, but yeah, in this position, I was like, now I cannot move the bishop here again. Oh, now he stopped my plan. Everything's bad. But then I realized, wait, I had moved the bishop to d4 because of the other plan, because of pinning the f2 pawn, and making the square g3, yeah, basically unprotected, so that the queen can move there. Now I've seen, okay, yeah, right, it works again. It works again. The bishop is pinning the pawn, and the queen can go to g3 again, and now can infiltrate the position. So I'm very happy that I found out my initial plan again, and not miss such a crucial situation, and find the easy win here. So I went to g3 with the queen, and now it's, yeah, computer always says forced mate in 12. Here, yeah, it doesn't really matter if the king goes away or the bishop goes here. The threat is always the same, taking on f2 with check or with a mating threat, and also attacking the rook in parallel. So he decided to go queen h1. So I take with king h1, and I take with a queen on f2. So this is a mating threat on g1 and an attack on the rook. It's not, yeah, it is kind of possible to stop both, but you will see it's only possible with the creation of another problem. So the computer says, okay, the best option is to just sack a piece, either the rook or the knight on e3 to stop that mating threat. I mean, okay, then I win an additional piece or full rook. So that's also not really helpful. So what he did is save the rook by trading it on e8, but I just take it back. And now he has to stop the mating threat by moving the bishop away. He moved it to g2, but this creates a new problem, because now the final rank is basically unprotected, and both king and queen are there, so I can just move the rook to e1 and attack both king and queen. So I'm just winning the queen again with check, and he has to move the king away. And then I just thought, okay, the quickest way or the safest way to go for a mate, because this is a pretty normal known way to create a forced mate, is to go for only checks. So I played the bishop to g1, and this was already the position where my opponent resigned. This is a forced mate in 3. I thought it's a mate in 2, it's a mate in 3, so I missed one move. So the only move here is the king here, then you move the bishop here, and I thought, okay, he has to move the king to h2 back, and then queen g1 is the mate in the next move. He can also sack the bishop in between, so then it's this, and then it's mate. But okay, it's a forced mate in any way. So this is the position my opponent resigned in. So the game was not very long again. You can also say it was, in the end, not very hard, but there were some critical situations. So the decision, do I go for opposite colored bishops and attack on the dark squares? Yeah, in the end it was the right decision, but okay, you still have to make it and figure it out and see that this is a winning plan. Also, there were some tricky situations, when I could have made the decision to sack knight on f2, that I have not seen it, or that I have not seen that bishop c4 could create some counterplay. So there are some situations that could have been better solved, but I think overall the game was pretty fine from my side. And okay, so we were on all boards a lot higher rated, like I said. So it was again a very, very clear result. We won that game 8-0, so all 8 boards of ours won. Like I said, we had 300 points higher rating on average than our opponents. In my case, it was even 500 points. On some boards, it was just 1 to 200 or so. But in the end, the result was very clear again. So the situation after the 5th round was that we had won 5 matches. so we were very clearly in the lead. But those were the five opponents that we played and that we won against were in the end the 5 last teams in the league table. So now the 4 last rounds we were or will be playing the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th ranked team in the league table. And those teams have significantly better players. When they field their best team, they are very close to our level. One team is even slightly higher ranked, higher rated than us. So those matches won't be ended like 8-0 or 7-1 like in the first 5 rounds. So I can already tell you, because I record this video after the 7th round, the other games were a lot closer and a lot more interesting for both sides. And so the plan is that I make the recordings of the 6th and 7th round games also in March, and probably upload them until the end of March. And I would be happy if you also tune in to the 5th and to the 6th and 7th round recap, and I probably will also play the last 2 rounds and will upload recaps of those games later, somewhere in April. Then thank you very much for following the games so far, and then I hope that you also tune in the next rounds.